My girlfriend ghosted me, then I found out she was cheating with a rich guy. I exposed her and she lost everything. Hey folks, I'm a 27-year-old guy, and I was in a relationship with my ex-girlfriend Mindy, who's 25. We were together for 2 solid years. Then, out of the blue, she ghosted me last month, just vanished without giving me any explanation. We first met at a party hosted by one of her friends a couple of years ago. After a few months of casual dating, we decided to make it official. From that point on, we were pretty much inseparable. I was really into her, honestly. I think she was the first person I'd ever been in a serious relationship with. Before her, sure, I had dated people, but nothing ever stuck. Either I'd lose interest after a couple of months, or they'd end things because we wanted different things out of life. But with Mindy, it felt different, completely different. I can't really explain it well, but something about her just clicked with me. These past 2 years were probably the happiest I've ever been. I genuinely thought she felt the same way. Then, a few months ago, something changed. She started acting really distant, like I was no longer a priority. I tried talking to her about it a bunch of times, hoping we could work through whatever was going on. But all she ever said was that she was swamped with work. She had just started this new job, and according to her, it was super demanding and stressful. So, I figured I'd give her the space she asked for. I tried not to take it personally, but deep down, it hurt like hell. She kept saying she was working late, barely called or texted, and it really started to feel like she didn't care anymore. Like I was being pushed to the side while she focused on everything else. Then, about a month ago, things hit a breaking point. We got into this huge fight one night. We didn't live together, never had, even after being together for so long. She had her own place just a few blocks from mine, maybe a 20 or 30-minute drive. That night, she came over after work, exhausted and complaining about how long her commute was. So I brought up something I'd been thinking about for a while. I asked if she wanted to move in with me. It felt like the right time to bring it up, especially since my place was way closer to her office. I figured it'd make life easier for her and bring us even closer. But she turned me down, said she preferred having her own space. And I couldn't wrap my head around that because she'd just finished talking about how draining her daily travel was. I offered to put her name on the lease, split the rent, whatever it took to make it work. That's when she hit me with something I didn't expect. She said flat out that she didn't want to live with me. That stung. I mean, after 2 years together, I thought it made sense to take the next step. I wasn't trying to rush her or pressure her, I just wanted to understand where we stood. If she wasn't ready, fine. But we needed to talk about it. I needed to know if she was in this for the long haul, or if I'd just been fooling myself. But the second I tried to bring it up, she lost her temper. Started yelling, saying I was trying to force her into something she didn't want. I kept trying to explain that I just wanted a conversation, wanted to know how she really felt about me, but she wasn't having any of it. She screamed at me, accused me of being insecure, said I was jealous of how well her life was going. That's when I snapped too. I ended up yelling back, telling her that she clearly didn't care about this relationship the way I did. And finally, I told her to leave. She gathered her stuff and walked out. And just like that, she was gone. The next morning, I tried calling her to talk things through, but she had blocked me. Everywhere. I couldn't reach her by phone, text, nothing. I started freaking out. So I drove over to her apartment, only to have her landlord tell me she'd moved out the night before. Handed in the keys, paid off the rent, and told them she wasn't coming back. Apparently, she'd already made plans to leave. This wasn't some spur-of-the-moment decision. I was stunned. If she was planning to move out, why hadn't she said anything? I was still trying to process it all, so I reached out to a few of her friends, but they'd all blocked me too. I tried some mutual friends, but they said she hadn't talked to them in weeks and they had no idea what was going on. Basically, I was completely shut out. A couple days after that fight, it was like she'd vanished off the face of the earth. Some friends told me she'd deleted all her social media accounts and wasn't responding to calls or messages. Even if someone wanted to help me figure out what happened, there was no way to reach her anymore. For 2 whole weeks, I did everything I could think of to get in touch. I even tried contacting her parents, but they'd blocked me too. When I went to their house, they refused to open the door and told me if I didn't leave, they'd call the police. At that point, I had no choice but to stop. None of her friends would talk to me. Her family wanted nothing to do with me. And I felt like I was losing my mind. I'd spent 2 weeks chasing someone who clearly wanted nothing to do with me, and it broke me. For a while, the only routine I had was dragging myself to work, counting down the hours until I could clock out and go back to obsessively searching for any trace of Mindy. Deep down, I knew she didn't want to be found. She made that pretty clear by blocking me everywhere and going completely off the grid. But I still needed just one final conversation with her. Even if she was done with me, I felt like I at least deserved to hear it straight from her mouth. After 2 years together, the least she could have done was say goodbye properly. I just wanted closure. At that point, I honestly felt like I was going insane. And when it finally hit me that she was truly gone and not coming back, I broke down completely. I had this awful night where I ended up drinking way too much, polished off a couple bottles of wine on my own, and eventually passed out. I know that might sound dramatic to some people, but the pain I was feeling was so intense, it was like grieving a death. That's the only way I can describe it. It felt like someone I loved had died. The next morning, I woke up with a hangover from hell and realized I couldn't keep doing this to myself. After 2 weeks of chasing shadows, I finally accepted that she wasn't coming back. I had to let go, even though it felt impossible. So, I started putting my energy back into work, mainly because I had no choice. My performance had tanked while I was spiraling over the breakup, and I knew if I didn't pull it together, I'd end up losing my job too. After work, I barely spoke to anyone. I just tried to distract myself, read books, binge-watch random shows, anything to keep my mind off her. I did my best to hold it together, and I'm grateful that my friends and family were there for me. They kept checking in, texting me every morning and night just to make sure I was okay. That support meant more than I can say. Still, no matter how hard I tried to move on, I was struggling. Some nights, I'd cry myself to sleep, the ache in my chest so sharp it felt physical. I missed her like crazy, and a big part of me still wanted her back, no matter how badly she had hurt me. Emotionally, I was a wreck, and then, out of nowhere, I got a message from a couple friends letting me know that Mindy had resurfaced online. The very first thing she posted? A picture with another guy, the two of them hugging, all smiles. And in the caption, she'd written this long, gushing paragraph celebrating their 6-month anniversary. I stared at those screenshots in total disbelief. 6 months? That didn't make any sense. That would mean she was with him while she was still with me. I never imagined in a million years that Mindy would cheat on me. But there it was, undeniable proof, right in front of my eyes. For a while, I just sat there, numb. I didn't know what to think, didn't know how to feel. I was shocked, embarrassed, heartbroken, and furious all at once. That feeling lingered for days. And then, 6 days ago, something in me snapped. I'd tried to be the bigger person. I'd tried to move on. But I felt so betrayed and worthless that I couldn't let it go anymore. I had to do something. So, I reached out to one of my friends and practically begged him to let me borrow his Instagram account. He followed Mindy, and since her account was private, I knew making a fake one wouldn't work. After a lot of convincing, he gave in and let me use his. Once I logged in, I went straight to the guy's profile. Thankfully, or maybe not, his account was public. From the looks of it, he came from serious money. His feed was filled with photos of him on yachts in exotic places, sipping champagne, dressed to the nines at fancy parties. The guy clearly knew how to live large, and honestly, I could see why she might have been drawn to that. As I scrolled through his posts, I noticed that for the past few months, Mindy had been in every single one of them, just not in an obvious way. Her face wasn't in the pictures, but I spotted her tattoo on her wrist in a few shots. In others, their feet were touching, or her hands would be in frame. Little clues that only someone who knew her well would pick up on. And then there it was, the anniversary post. Both of their faces, front and center, with him beaming at her the same way I used to. Seeing that, it just broke me all over again. Before I even had time to think about what I was doing, I logged out of my friend's account, went back into mine, and found the guy's profile. Then I messaged him. I told him everything, how Mindy and I had been together for 2 years, how she'd been seeing him behind my back the entire time, and how he deserved to know the truth. I even attached screenshots of our old conversations and pictures of us together, just to make sure he'd believe me. And then I waited. I had no idea what would come of it, but at that moment, it felt like the only thing I could do. 2 days later, Mindy finally unblocked me, and sure enough, I got a call from her. The second I picked up, she went off. Started screaming at me, blaming me for everything. She accused me of trying to ruin her life out of jealousy, again. Which I honestly don't get. Why would I be jealous of someone who lied to me and cheated? She claimed I had gone out of my way to sabotage her happiness by telling her boyfriend everything. And according to her, my message not only made him dump her, but also cost her her job. Turns out, the guy she was dating wasn't just some rich guy, he was the son of the chairman of the company she worked for. And after he found out what she did, he told his dad. Now, she's apparently getting fired. Legally, I'm not sure how that works. It sounds like something she could sue over. But either way, she's blaming me for all of it. She says I ruined her relationship and her career. So now I'm sitting here wondering, am I the asshole for telling my ex's new boyfriend that she cheated on me with him? Update 1A. Hey everyone, thanks so much for all the support on my original post. It really means a lot. I'm still having a tough time dealing with everything, especially knowing that Mindy cheated on me after 2 years together. But I'm doing my best to hold it together. Slowly but surely, I'm trying to get my life back on track because at the end of the day, she's just not worth the tears I've cried over her. So lately, I've even started looking into therapy. I really want to get a handle on things and learn how to deal with life better, especially after everything that's happened. It's been 6 days since Mindy last contacted me, and after reading through all your messages and encouragement, I finally decided I wasn't going to keep punishing myself for what went down. I went ahead and blocked her. She was completely wrong about everything she said to me. I'm not jealous of her, not even close. And I'm definitely not the kind of person who can't stand to see an ex happy. That's not who I am. I just don't appreciate being lied to and cheated on, simple as that. So yeah, I blocked her. Let her be mad about it if she wants. I'm not going to carry that weight around anymore. She didn't care how heartbroken I was when she walked away, so I don't owe her any more of my energy. Lately, she's been trying to get our mutual friends to feel sorry for her, telling them I'm the reason she's getting fired. But honestly, I don't think it's working. The truth is, she hadn't spoken to any of those friends in a long time, probably because she was worried they'd find out about her new relationship and expose her. Now that everything's come out, nobody's really buying into her version of events. She's trying to spin this story about how I was some toxic guy who manipulated and controlled her, and that's why she cheated. But no one believes her. The people who know me, who've known me for years, they know who I really am. And that's good enough for me. She can say whatever she wants now, but as long as the truth is out there and people aren't falling for her lies, I'm not going to lift a finger to stop her. It's just not worth it. After that last phone call, where she blamed me for everything, she never reached out again. And I ended up blocking her 3 days later. If she had anything more to say, she had the chance. She didn't take it. So I really don't get why she's now going around trying to turn people against me. It's not working, it's just making her look childish. In fact, people have been coming to me, telling me what she's been saying and kind of laughing at how ridiculous it all sounds. It's clear she's in a really rough spot right now, and she's lashing out. But honestly, if we're being real, good judgment was never exactly her strong suit, especially not with how she handled all of this. Update 2. Hey again. I just posted my last update a couple days ago, and now something unexpected happened. I finally heard back from the other guy Mindy was seeing. I didn't think he'd ever respond, since it had been a while with no word. I figured maybe he just read my message and decided to ignore it. But a few hours ago, out of nowhere, he messaged me saying he wanted to talk, like actually talk, on the phone. He said he had a lot to say and asked if I'd be willing to give him my number. I thought about it for a bit, then decided, what the hell, why not? I gave him my number, and 15 minutes later, my phone rang. That was 2 hours ago. We just got off the call, and I came straight here to share what I found out. He started the conversation by apologizing for everything that had happened. I told him right away that he didn't need to apologize, none of this was his fault. Just like me, he had no idea what Mindy had been up to, so he had nothing to feel bad about. Then he told me something that really hit me. He said he'd actually been suspicious for a while, like for the past 6 months. He had a gut feeling something wasn't right. But when Mindy finally broke up with me, her behavior seemed less shady, so he let it go. After getting my message, though, he didn't hesitate. He broke up with her on the spot. He said everything I told him made sense and lined up with things he'd noticed earlier in the relationship. He didn't even need more proof, he just knew it was true. When he confronted her, she tried to deny everything, of course. But that didn't last long, especially since I'd sent him actual evidence. Eventually, she admitted she had been with me while she was dating him, but she tried to twist it. Claimed she was too scared to break up with me because I was supposedly toxic and might have retaliated in some horrible way. She said she'd been pretending for the last 6 months and didn't have any real feelings for me. Thankfully, he didn't buy that crap. He kept pressing her until she finally told him the truth, yes, she'd cheated. Still, even after all that, she tried to convince him to stay with her. Said she deserved a second chance. Total nonsense. He told me he was done. That the last few days had been rough for him emotionally, which is why he hadn't responded to me sooner. But now that he was in a better headspace, he wanted to reach out. Then he told me something I didn't expect. After she got fired from her job, she blamed him for it. And yeah, he admitted he had a hand in it, but it wasn't how she made it seem. Apparently, the company had already been thinking about letting her go for a while because her performance was terrible. People in her department had been picking up her slack for months. But once she started seeing him, he went out of his way to defend her and keep her job safe. Now that everything came out, he spoke to his father, who's the chairman and the head of her department, and they all agreed it was time to let her go. So no, it wasn't just about the cheating. It was because she wasn't doing her job. She just didn't want to believe that. Mindy was convinced she got fired solely because of her personal life, like the company was punishing her for cheating, which, yeah, would be legally questionable if that were the full story. But now we know the truth, she was already on thin ice, and her boyfriend had just been stalling the inevitable. He asked me near the end of the call if I'd be willing to testify on their behalf if she decided to sue. I said yes, no hesitation. He told me it'd only be a last resort, but they needed to cover all their bases just in case. After that, we actually ended up talking for nearly an hour, mostly about Mindy, of course, until he had to go. And honestly, the other guy, let's call him Nick, turned out to be a really cool dude. I know it might sound a little strange, but I'd actually like to be friends with him. Throughout our conversation, he kept cracking jokes, and I found myself laughing harder than I have in weeks. He made light of the whole situation in a way that didn't feel mean, just cathartic. I think it's easier for him to joke about it since he only dated Mindy for 6 months, while I was with her for 2 years, something he even teased me about, in a totally friendly way. But honestly, talking to him made me feel so much lighter. I hadn't really opened up to anyone else about all of this, not like that. I'd been trying to take the high road and not badmouth my ex. But this felt different. It wasn't petty, it was just two guys who'd been through the same ridiculous experience finding some common ground. I even saved his number, and I'm pretty sure he saved mine too. Update 3. So, it's been about 2 weeks since that last update, and just like I figured, Mindy decided to file a lawsuit against her former employer for wrongful termination. Personally, I wouldn't call it wrongful, not after everything I've learned, but hey, if she wants to blow her money on legal fees, that's on her. Nick, her other ex, gave me the heads up a few days ago. He said they might need me to step in as a witness if the case goes to court, and I told him without hesitation that I'm in. If I get the chance to speak the truth and play a part in exposing what she did, I'm all for it. After everything she put me through, I'd love nothing more than to be part of holding her accountable. Mindy's still running around telling anyone who will listen that I ruined her life, trying to gather sympathy, but I don't think anyone's falling for it anymore. Most of our mutual friends have stopped talking to her entirely, and I'm honestly glad to hear that. She hasn't tried to reach out to me again, but her parents did, which caught me way off guard. A couple days ago, they called me. I picked up, mostly out of curiosity, considering the last time I tried to talk to them, they threatened to call the cops on me just for showing up. So, I answered and didn't say a word, just let them talk. They started off by apologizing for how they treated me the last time, saying they were just overwhelmed and didn't know how to handle the situation. But then they quickly shifted the tone. They told me I should try to fix things with Mindy, now that I'd gone out of my way to destroy her relationship. They actually brought up how long she and I had been together, like that was somehow a reason I should have helped her instead of calling her out. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I mean, maybe they should have reminded her about our 2 years together before she cheated. I tried explaining that I wasn't responsible for her getting fired, that it was the company's decision, and even if I wanted to erase everything I'd said, which I couldn't, it wouldn't change anything. But they weren't listening. They kept pushing and guilt-tripping, saying they'd always thought of me like a son. Honestly, that was laughable. I doubt they'd ever threaten to call the police on their actual son like they did with me. Eventually, they hung up. No goodbye. And honestly, I'm relieved. I've got nothing else to say to them, and I'm done trying to reason with people who can't face reality. Update 4. So, turns out Mindy and the company settled the lawsuit out of court. But even then, she walked away with barely anything. They only gave her $3,000. That's all. And honestly, it's no surprise. Nick told me they had piles of reports from her department about how poorly she was doing at her job. Negative feedback, missed deadlines, sloppy work, you name it. She was a terrible employee from the start. The only reason she hadn't been fired earlier was because Nick had been fighting for her behind the scenes, pulling strings with his dad, who happens to be the chairman. Once their relationship blew up, he stopped protecting her. And just like that, she was out. She still thinks the firing was all about the cheating, but the truth is, she'd been skating by for months. It was only a matter of time. Nick and I have actually gotten really close lately. A couple of days ago, we met up for lunch. He happened to be near my office, and I was on break, so we decided to grab a bite. Over the past few weeks, we've kept in touch and talked a lot, way beyond anything Mindy related. We've got a ton in common, and honestly, it's weird how well we click. Feels like I've known the guy forever. I keep joking that she might have cheated on us, but in the end, she accidentally introduced me to someone who's become a real friend. Apparently, that little twist hasn't gone over well with her. She's been ranting to whoever's still willing to listen about how betrayed she feels. Some of her friends even messaged us, telling us to have some shame and accusing us of gossiping about her. Which is ridiculous, we've got way more interesting things to talk about than Mindy. Last I heard, she's unemployed and back living with her parents. She used to stay in an apartment near Nick's place, but he was paying for it. After the breakup, he gave her a week to figure things out, then told her she had to move because he wasn't going to keep footing the bill. Can't blame him. She couldn't afford that place on her own, so she packed up and went back home. Now, her life's a mess. And yeah, I'm happy about it. I know I said before that I didn't want to be the kind of person who can't handle seeing an ex happy. But let's be honest, Mindy isn't just any ex. She's someone who gaslit me for months, made me doubt myself, and walked all over the relationship we had. If anyone doesn't deserve happiness right now, it's her. I'm not going to let her keep influencing my life. Not anymore. I'm focused on putting things back together for myself piece by piece and finally moving forward for real.